What's up, guys? So I had to make a video about this, about the Game Boy games and the Game Boy Advance games that are now on Switch. When I first saw this in the Nintendo Direct, like it blew my mind. This was essentially my childhood. Like I had the OG Game Boy, like the big brick black and white Game Boy that you had the little light filter to adjust so you could see the game. I remember I had to sit in front of a lamp, bright lamp, just to be able to see what I was playing. But that's what I grew up like. That was my first video game system, any kind of system at all. Was that handheld Game Boy, and that's what I had for the longest time. I went from that to the Game Boy Color, then from the Game Boy Color to the Game Boy Advance. Um, and just to be able to see these games again on the Switch is like amazing to be able to play them again. Like these are the games I grew up with, like with Metroid 2, Super Mario Land 2, Six Golden Coins, Tetris, just to see these games again. And they look so good. Like they look so good on the app. They run really well, and the different filters are so neat. You have the original filter, you have the Game Boy Pocket filter, then you have the Game Boy Color filter. Because when you had a Game Boy Color, whenever you'd put Game Boy games in there, they'd have like a default color scheme in there. And so any Game Boy game that you put in there would have colors. It just wouldn't be as vibrant as, like an actual Game Boy Color game. But the fact that they put all these filters up there and including reproducing the classic feel, it's just amazing. And it's so cool to see all these games again. Like, I love Game Boy and the Game Boy line of systems. Like I said, it's essentially my childhood, and I'm so excited to see, what other kind of games they can add up here. Yeah, so for this video, I did kind of want to give my thoughts on just the overall initial games that are up here. So we have our classics. We have Tetris, we have Metroid 2, we have Super Mario Land 2, Six Golden Coins. Those are some of the classic Game Boy games. I saw they included Wario Land 3 up here. I always remember Wario Land 3 because it was a game that I would replay so many times, but would hardly ever get far in. I think I'd maybe get like 6 levels in and I'd get stuck. Um, and I don't know why. I guess I was young and I just didn't know how to look up stuff, but I don't know why I never looked up like what to do to get past that part. But I could just never get past some kind of certain point in the game. Um, and so now I'm excited with this Wario Land 3 up here. I can go back and I can actually possibly get past the part that always got stuck on. But like the Wario Land 3, just Wario Land 3 is kind of a weird inclusion up here. I don't know why they didn't include like Wario Land 1 or Wario Land 2. Maybe they'll do that. I do hope they include Wario Land 4 because I felt like Wario Land 1 and Wario Land 4 were probably the best ones of the series to me. Wario Land 2 and 3 were just a bit kind of weird. Wario Land 1 is actually the only Wario Land game where Wario can actually get hurt. You can see with this game, the enemies can never hurt you. They just kind of throw you off your path of progress. But yeah, Wario Land 3 had its own unique like day and night system, and you might see the level differently when you go in it when it's nighttime as opposed to daytime. Or there might be like certain enemies that you didn't see before. Like I know in one level you'll see zombies at night that'll turn you into a zombie, but then when you go back in there, the zombies are gone and they're replaced by something else. So I always thought that was pretty unique for Nintendo Color game at that time. Then there's some of the other Game Boy games up there. Game and Watch Gallery 3. Again, kind of a weird inclusion. They didn't include Game and Watch Gallery 1 and 2. I do hope they include Game and Watch Gallery 4 for Game Boy Advance because I remember that one really fondly. It just kind of seems like a random selection of games. Like it's cool they included the Link's Awakening Zelda DX up here, even though So I guess those that play Link's Awakening on the Switch, they can go and play the original, or not the original, but um, because I think the original came to Game Boy, but like the Game Boy Color version of it, which is probably the best version of the original version of that game. Alone in the Dark. So this is like I said, this is kind of a random selection of games. Like I never knew that Alone in the Dark came to the Game Boy Color. And when you turn it on, like it's actually really impressive, like for a Game Boy Color game. Like some people don't count Game Boy Color as a new system, but really it was a brand new system because a Game Boy could not play a game like this. Like this is actually really impressive for a Game Boy, especially a Game Boy Color game. Um, and the Game Boy Color, it really is a system in itself because it had a lot of games. Like it had, don't quote me on this. I think maybe like 800 or so games, just exclusive to the system. And so for those that don't call it a new system, that's kind of a wrong fact. Um, but then you have games. So the other games up here, like Kirby's Dream Land, you can play the original Kirby's Dream Land, which is really cool. Gargoyle's Quest. I've never played that. I've never heard of it. I tried playing it and it was pretty fun. I mean, it's just I'm kind of wondering why Nintendo chose to include some of these games, for the initial lineup. But overall, I mean, it's a pretty solid selection. It gives you a healthy amount of games to play and things to do, and the fact that there's multiplayer like Game Boy Tetris multiplayer. I don't know why I'm excited for that, but I am excited for that. I still wish, like just like with the other apps, that it's friends only, so you got to have friends to play the game. Um, I guess you could go online and find people to play with, but I don't know. I probably online matchmaking would probably be a disaster. Knowing Nintendo's efforts with some of their online games. But yeah, I mean, overall, I feel like this is a good, pretty solid selection. But really, when I saw that Game Boy games are coming in the Direct, that pretty much blew my mind. But then to see Game Boy Advance games coming too, like that's what I was super excited about. Because I've been wanting to, I sold my Game Boy Advance years and years ago, and that's probably one of my biggest regrets was selling that. Because there were so many cool games for it. And, like I said, I was going to purchase them on the Wii U, and I'm glad that I waited, because I've been putting it off and putting it off. There's probably still a few games on the Wii U that I'm going to purchase before the eShop shuts down, just because I don't know if those Game Boy Advance games are coming to the service or not. But like these games that have come, like Mario Kart, Super Mario Advance 4, those were games that I were going to purchase, and now that they're on the app, I don't really have a need to purchase them. I guess if I wanted them, to just have my own copy, because really these are like games that you're essentially renting off of the online service. I guess I could do that, but I would have to do it before March. But yeah, with the Game Boy Advance games, was super exciting because Game Boy Advance games, they really have aged really well. They look really good. They look really good on this app. And this is a pretty cool, solid selection. Like the Minish Cap, like that's super exciting. I've never played the Minish Cap, and that's what I've been playing. That was the first game I played when I opened up when I downloaded the Game Boy Advance. And this is super. This is super cool. Like this Minish Cap is really good. It's a really good Zelda game, and I've only played like maybe the first dungeon or so. But it's just unique in the fact that you can shrink down and you can visit, areas that you couldn't previously explore due to your size. But yeah, that was really cool. Um, WarioWare, I was really glad they added WarioWare because I put so many hours into this when I was a kid. Because when it's all the unlockables, like you can unlock all these different mini games and just put so much. They're just pretty much time wasters. Like there's one where you just fly a paper airplane like as long as you could, or jump rope as long as you could. They were essentially time wasters, but it was just a lot of fun to unlock all these games. And that's something that was missing in the newest WarioWare was the lack of unlockables. Like there was no games to unlock besides like just like some multiplayer ones from what I remember. But the OG WarioWare, I mean that's pretty much an excellent game. It's not going to take you long to beat, but the WarioWare games never do. You know, essentially you're competing for high scores, and that in itself is a lot of fun. Then there's of course there's the nostalgic factor with WarioWare. You know, the original one. You know that for those that like the WarioWare series but never really played the first one, it's really cool, and that Nintendo highlighted that up there. Super Mario Advanced 4, which is really Super Mario Brothers 3. I like that they put this version in here because this version actually has all the eShop levels, or the e-reader levels. I'm sorry. So the e-reader, do you guys? I don't know if you guys remember that, but the e-reader had all these exclusive cards that you'd scan to get all these exclusive levels in this game. And there's like 40 or so levels, and the fact that they included it with this version is really neat. This was the version that was on the Wii U. So like even if you have a Game Boy Advance and you have this game, chances are you probably don't have all these levels unless you were an avid e-reader collector and you had all the cards. But yeah, just that little bonus is really neat just to play all those additional levels. Then there is is it Curry Kirkin? I don't know how to pronounce it. But I was actually really surprised with this. This is a game that I've never played. But I do remember seeing this character in Smash Brothers as a trophy and wondering like what the heck it was. So I'm familiar with this character. But this is like a puzzle game where you have to navigate a flying little helicopter through these courses. And it's actually really more difficult than it seems. Like I found myself dying like frequently, and these are just in the first initial levels. Like you have to be really patient. Um but then like to master it is like amazing because you can try to beat it in like the lowest time possible. So there's a lot of replay value to this, I think, and it's definitely something I'm going to put time into. Because this game really surprised me with how fun it was. And I don't know if this was a Japanese only title or not, because I mean, it is in English right now. So I don't know if this was just localized for the app, or if there was a localization of this game and I just never saw it or never heard of it. But yeah, it's definitely a game that I'm really surprised me, and I'm really glad they put it on this app because it's a game I've never played, just like Minish Cap, and it's something that it's a new, unique experience for me. And it's part of Nintendo's history. You know, it was a Super Smash Brothers trophy, so it's really cool to see that represented. I feel like this is the Game Boy Advance line is a more of a better selection than the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color, or maybe there's just better games on it. Of course, you have the Mario Kart, which it's cool to see an old Mario Kart on the Switch system. Now, it's not the best Mario Kart. Yeah, it's definitely not the best Mario Kart. It plays kind of like Super Mario Kart, but it does control better than that. But like it's pretty much kind of like a remake of that. It's just kind of a weird entry in the series. You know, when people talk about Mario Kart, you don't really hear them referencing this that much. Like there's a lot of tracks that they've remade for like Mario Kart 8 that are in this game, like Cheese Land or Ribbon Road. which is, it definitely needed remakes because the overall tracks themselves can be, they're pretty much just flat, some curves here and there, and they are a bit boring. Um, I mean, the game itself is still fun if I can't talk right now, but yeah, even if it is a bit hard to control, um, it is a little difficult to control, the racetracks, but it's nice that they included it. And of course, poor Alpha Dream. Mario and Luigi is such an excellent series, and this is such an excellent game. I'm so glad it's up here. So now, those that didn't get the remake on 3DS or play the original game can play it now. And it's nice to see Alpha Dream logo up here. It's unfortunate that they went bankrupt. And that's a whole video and a story in itself. But I'm definitely gonna play through this because I never actually beat this game back in the day. I can't remember how far I got, but now it's definitely something I can play. Just like with the Minish Cap. But overall, yeah, I'm just so glad that these games have come to this system, and just can't wait to see what else Nintendo has in store.